Happy New Year to everybody. Today is a brand new year, and I wish nothing but prosperity and success for everyone. All right, so, I was watching the news, or in watching the news, I was listening to the news personnel alongside Minister Everald Warmington speaking about the backlash that he has received from church officials, basically to say that he knows nothing about the church and he shouldn't really give a sort of view as it relates to the whole rebuilding or the repairing of churches. And I am very, very disappointed in the response of some of these church officials. It is very, very, and I can understand why God now has said, study to show thyself approved unto God to become his workmanship. It is very important that when you go out and you speak, that your comprehension skills are key, your critical thinking skills are key. In no form or in any fashion was he saying that the churches must be left alone. Let me clear that up. I was listening to him keenly. I literally played over the thing and I totally agree with what he has said. The country, pre-Hurricane Melissa, had quite a number of churches that were not doing well. I remember watching the news a few months ago where church leaders were begging almost for people to come to church because membership has been dwindling for a long time now. And we started to see it more so since the advent of COVID. It's almost like people couldn't wait to come out of church. COVID just unearthed that. And in it, you saw the steady decline. When you look in churches, no disrespect, I respect the elderly, but it's pure old people. You may have one or two churches that have youth. So I don't want nobody to say my church. I'm talking generally speaking. The membership is dwindling. I literally have heard church leaders talk about that. The membership has declined and it's still on the decline. What he's simply saying, instead of, and this is my words put in, if every walk you walk, every other house or every other space or building that you see is a church, do an amalgamation, put them in one, in this area, this section, and then you go to a big place and everybody can go and worship there. Instead of this church over, barely anybody go. This one right here, so barely anybody go. This one right there, right? Because he was saying that based on the estimation, $75 million would not be able to repair the church. And he's right. When I had traveled to Black River in particular and saw quite a number of churches that cannot, 75 million? You mean unless you're repairing one church? Based on the structure and the size and whatnot of the one church, 75 million cannot help in neither repair nor the rebuilding. You understand? It cannot. Unless you're talking 75 million pounds sterling. And it still would only be able to do a few. Because just to dig up the foundation is millions of dollars. And then to put things in place. And obviously you're going to use formidable and very sturdy material, durable material. So he was not saying in any shape, form, or fashion for the church to not be assisted or, whatnot. He also made a very good point. There are churches that, even though it is a non-profit organization, that through the tithing and the giving and the aids and the grants and whatever it is, and the different fundraising events that some churches will have, they do have money in their kitty. So they can, if that is the case, what they can do, follow a sort of Robert Kiyosaki's principle, borrow against the capital that you have. You know what I mean? Because he gave a good point that some people don't have sufficient points. Regular civilians do not have sufficient points to get an NHT loan. You know what I mean? So he's saying that since you have money in your kitty, that you can actually borrow against the money that you have in the sort of bursary and so on. So he really was not hitting against the church. And it was sad to hear him say that some of these self-appointed leaders, church leaders, which I agree with him on, seem to not comprehend a very simple statement that he has made, Because one of the fundamental things that he stated is that, remember, not everyone is of the church. You have atheists, I'm putting in this, you have agnostics, you have people who are just, you have people who worship the devil, and they're taxpayers. And if it is that they're not in support of the church, it's almost like you want to force them to build it. You know what I mean? You can't tell those taxpayers that their money is going to build an organization that they don't support. And that is a problem that I have with some of the church people. They feel that as somebody says something, to say, no, this is not necessarily the way to go. You can try this method. He gave a solution. He didn't just come with some, no, it can't be done. And then he stopped there. He said, instead of having so many churches per square mile, basically, pool them together, right? Because the membership has dwindled. The membership has dwindled greatly. You may have a one or two church or churches that you'll still have a viable and vibrant membership with a mixed crowd in terms of ages and so on. But we're talking generally. That even pastors were, they were kind of worried and fretting, trepidatious out basically. So he really has not said that he shouldn't have gotten any backlash. He came with a solution, which I thought was a very good solution. Do an amalgamation. And again, I raised the issue, and this is personally speaking, that even some of these little church that you see about the place are not necessarily God ordained. They're not necessarily God ordained. It could have been birthed out of so many toxic reasons or toxicity. It could have been birthed out of so many different things. Do not want to yield to church leadership. Want to have their own way. Not have an understanding of the etymology or the hermeneutics, as in the solid, being able to solidly explain the word of God and to teach it comprehensively. And because it goes above them and it's in their heads, and it's aloof, they form something for themselves. They want to get into a frenzy. They just want to, for them they call it getting into spirit by shaking up. This church not doing that. So it's a dead church in there. So many different reasons, which are not necessarily, some of these so-called churches are not necessarily God ordained. So instead of having the whole of a church about the place, just form, pool some of them together, make one building, and you go there on a Saturday. For those who may go on a Saturday, and for those who go on a Sunday, you choose. I don't know what he said that is off. You shouldn't have to have a man having to say that. It seems as if you didn't comprehend a very simple statement that he has made. He did not hit out on the church. He just said that you cannot use the taxpayers' money to do that. And some of you have billions of dollars in the treasury or the bursary or whatever it is that you call it. Borrow against it. Then if you feel the need that you have to build building after building after building after building after building after building. And it is so funny. All of these different buildings, yet people are becoming more lawless and godless. They're not being transformed. So you want the building. You see, we are looking at the minor as opposed to the major. The major is going out there promulgating the word of God and living the life by treating people with honor and respect. Loving those who are difficult to love, because you too are difficult to love. So I'm just appalled, and I'm kind of glad that, that Warmington is not really afraid. So he didn't really back down. He said it just sad that they didn't comprehend. You make him a fiesta these self-appointed leaders, which some of you probably are. God never necessarily put you under the post. You know what I mean? And that has a very spiritual meaning, because if God didn't put you in there, that is why you would, create this backlash against the man. Because if what he's saying is, maybe God is supporting, because, God can speak through anybody, use anybody. It would mean that if you are really God ordained, you would have comprehended what he said. He never hit out against the church. He never spoke against it. He was giving a solution to the issue or to the problem, which I agree with him on. Come on, people, now only need to really operate better than that, and don't make the church look like them not so sensible. Anyway, guys, you know what to do with TikTok and YouTube. Subscribe, Give me one of those lines and follow me on Instagram.